Toccoa Falls College in Toccoa Falls, Georgia. Since 1907, TFC, glorifying God through seeking and developing leaders who will impact the world for Jesus Christ. More information on TFC, call 706-886-7299 or visit them online at tfc.edu. That's tfc.edu.
Welcome to SGNP. Sit back for the next few minutes and hear stories heard nowhere else on radio, in a magazine, or on the internet. We're the audible voice of gospel music. Our sole purpose at SGNP is to inspire, edify, encourage, and entertain. Now, here's our host, Darren Sutherland, and his partner, Southern Gospel Music Association President and lead singer for Dolly Parton's own quartet, the Kingdom Heirs, Arthur Rice. What's wrong with living right anyway?
And welcome to SGNP. Darren Sutherland here once again with my partner and co-host. We're back from a 2-week hiatus. Now, the podcast hadn't gone anywhere for 2 weeks, but we got a new show coming back, Arthur. The past 2 weeks we've run the best ofs with Russ Taff and Phil and Kim Collinsworth, and three big folks people like to hear from. You think they're ready to hear from me and you again?
Well, maybe. Maybe we've given them enough break.
Hey, man, I was noticing this the other day, and you guys are off the road now back at Dollywood, and y'all back in the swing of things. I don't know what your schedule is, but it looked like the other day y'all were, from your social media post, it looked like the other day that y'all were putting together a new set, a new thing at Dollywood. What's going on with the Kingdom Heirs at Dollywood? Let everybody know before we get going too much today.
Well, we started back last Friday and back into full swing. Got the International Festival going on, and we're trying to get used to being back there. And so it's a great year. Looking forward to it. It's exciting. We had great crowds this weekend. Had good weather. A little bit cool, but the sun was shining at least for the most part, and which we hadn't seen that in a while. So that's been kind of nice.
How many years does this make starting for the Kingdom Heirs at Dollywood? Because this is a new year, so to speak.
This is our 34th season at Dollywood.
Wow.
Yeah.
34 years that the gospel music of Christ has been proclaimed, and the good news of gospel music has been proclaimed at a secular theme park. And in the date and time we live, when they've attacked folks for everything in the world, you guys just keep doing what you're doing, and that's a blessing, my friend.
It is. It really is, and God's been good to us and allowed us to continue where we're at and continue doing what we've done for 34 years, and I'm very, very grateful.
I've never asked you this question, and I'm going to ask you this real quick before we get on with our guest today. If it all ended today, what's the one memory that sticks out if you could point back to one thing with Arthur Rice with the Kingdom Heirs?
One thing. Wow. I guess it would have to be probably the opening of the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame and Museum.
Yeah.
I guess that would have to be probably one of the, for me. Yeah. Being in the music and being in the industry for so long, and to see that come to fruition and to actually have, a place, an actual brick and mortar building that says, hey, our music existed. and this is actually our 20th year this year for the Hall of Fame. Opened in '99, and so this is our 20th year. So that was probably, for me, that was probably one of the greatest ones.
Man, well, we're coming back in just a second. Our special guest today, Les Butler. You may know him. He used to be the editor and a big contributor with the Singing News magazine. He's now on the industry side, helping groups all across the country. He's a preacher, an evangelist, if you will. I don't know if he pastors. We'll talk to him a little bit about that. And we'll also talk to him about his own little quartet, the Old Time Preachers Quartet, right here on SGNP.
What a glad thought, some wonderful morning just to hear hear Gabriel's trumpet sound. When I wake up to sleep no more, rising to meet our blessed Redeemer with a glad shout, I'll leave the ground. When I wake up to sleep no more,
when I wake up
some glad morning
to sleep no more,
Jewels adoring,
happy I'll be
over in glory,
on that bright shore,
telling a story with the redeemed of all the ages, praising the one whom I adore. When I wake up to sleep no more. Glory to God, I'll have a new body changed in the twinkling of an eye. When I wake up to sleep no more, leaving behind all trouble and sorrow, bound for that city up on high. When I wake up to sleep no more,
when I wake up
some glad morning
to sleep no more,
Jewels adoring,
happy I'll be
over in glory,
on that bright shore,
telling a story with the redeemed of all the ages, praising the one whom I adore. When I wake up to sleep no more,
yes, I'll wake up
some glad morning
to sleep no more,
Jewels adoring,
happy I'll be
over in glory,
on that bright shore,
telling the story with the redeemed of all the ages, praising the one whom I adore. When I wake up to sleep no more, with the redeemed of all the ages, praising the one whom I adore. When I wake up, when I wake up, when I wake up, when I wake up to sleep no more.
Now, for the past 50 shows or so, you've heard me talking about My Pillow and Mike Lindell and the fine folks at My Pillow and what they do for me. Now we're going to get Arthur a My Pillow. Arthur, have you ever had a My Pillow?
I do. I love them.
You love them?
If we do, I tell you, we don't go anywhere without them.
Really?
Yeah, we
Man.
take them on vacation. My wife we don't go nowhere. Seriously, if we go anywhere more further than an hour away, my wife will take it, put it in the car.
Have you took your does she let you take the pillow on the bus on the weekends now?
Of course. Of course.
Man,
I got to.
you got to.
I tell you, you get used to sleeping on that thing, and it's incredible. It really is. We have that. We have the mattress topper.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. We love their stuff.
And they're getting some new stuff right away, Arthur and his lovely wife are. If you want My Pillow, go to the My Pillow website, mypillow.com. Enter in the code SGNP or just call them My Pillow. You can find the number right there on the website. Make sure you use the code SGNP. And as always, thanks Mike and the guys for using My Pillow and being a sponsor of SGNP.
Hey, I'm Karen Peck Gooch with Karen Peck and the River, and you're listening to the best in gospel music right here on SGNP.
And welcome back to SGNP. Darren Sutherland and my co-host Arthur Rice, lead singer with the Kingdom Heirs, President, Southern Gospel Music Association, here with us as always. And Arthur, our special guest today, is someone who has done as much behind the scenes as anybody in gospel music history. Mr. Les Butler, president of the Butler Group, former with Singing News. We'll just let him tell all about it, won't we, Arthur?
Yeah, glad to have him.
Les, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, boys. Thanks for having me, man. I'm honored that you called and want to talk to me.
Hey, man, you know what? We want to talk to all folks who have influence in the gospel music world, because at the end of the day, it's like we say, it's all about the gospel. And there's in the more gospel we get. One thing about gospel music, Les, and you know this from your date and time working with it, it brings a smile to folks' face. It encourages folks that are hurting. It uplifts folks that need uplifting, so to speak. And it's timeless. It's timeless. And you've been able throughout your career to be involved in great, great ways. Tell folks how Les Butler has been involved from your industry business, from your quartet business, to your promotion business, to your preaching business. Just tell the world, Les, if you don't mind.
Well, I was saved September 15th, 1978. I was 16. And, as a Christian does or should do, and hopefully you do these kind of things, you pray and you ask the Lord for things, in your life that you think are important to you and that you hope He opens doors, and pray about this vocation and, finding a spouse, that kind of thing. And I prayed all the personal things about a spouse and things like that, but I never asked the Lord. He knew the desire of my heart, but I never asked Him for it. I want to have my own quartet one day. I've never one time prayed that. I want to run the singing news one day. Not one time did I ever pray something like that. But yet, through all of that, He's allowed me to do more than I ever dreamed of, or more than I ever thought of, even considered in my mind could even possibly happen. He's allowed me to do it all and then some. Everything from producing number one songs and being on number one songs, and radio promotion of dozens and dozens of hit songs, running the Singing News magazine, 20 years running the Solid Gospel Radio Network, having my own quartet with Mike Holcomb, and it honestly just goes on. And as I sit here and listen to my talk, it sounds like I'm bragging, and I am, but I'm not bragging on me. I'm bragging on the Lord, because I couldn't have done a single one of those things, or if I would have tried, I would have failed miserably. But He gave it all to me, and to God be the glory for that. And He's allowed me to have success in all those areas, which is absolutely just, it just blows me away. He's good, and I'm thankful.
Is it fun?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, as fun as a barrel of monkeys.
Because that's what I think people. That's what I think people don't realize. If you're not having a good time at what you do, you can't accomplish all the things that you've accomplished, and you've accomplished a ton of stuff, Les, and that's a blessing. Who were some of your influences in gospel music when you first started listening and became a fan? Because all of us who are involved in the industry, we're fans. And gospel music has such a wide spectrum of different type of groups and people. What got you attracted to the industry and the people?
Well, I tell you what, I'd probably boil that down to a couple of different stories. One is, even though my parents were born and raised in Eastern Kentucky, and so they had a gospel music, and they were brought up in church. So a gospel music influence, a country music influence, a lot of bluegrass. And like most of the folks in the mountains back in the 50s and in the 60s, they didn't have work there in the mountains, so they all had to go north. So we landed up in the Chicago area, where my dad worked as a superintendent in the steel mill for 30 years. But my parents were members of the Canaan Record Club. And the Canaan Records back then was the label. It had folks like Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters, Lewis Family, Thrasher Brothers, the Kingsmen before they went to Heartwarming, Happy Goodmans, on and on. So Florida Boys, Inspirations, Blue Ridge Quartet. So that's where the Southern Gospel influences started with me. But very much on a personal level, I can actually go back to a specific day, a specific time and location, and give you details as to when the Southern Gospel bug, if you will, bit me bad. It was in Rockford, Illinois. It was in October of 1978. It was snowing, and there was a concert at the Rockford, Illinois high school, and it was the Kingsmen and the Happy Goodmans. And the Happy Goodmans hit the stage first. They had that big old full band with, it was like 5 different instruments up there, including at that point a young man they had just hired to play steel and banjo, Steve Rabbit Easter. And the very first song that they did was an old Redback hymn song called The Eastern Gate. Yep. And it kicked off with Rabbit on the steel, Eddie Crook on the piano, and the entire band. And there was such a wall of sound that came from that band. And then when Howard, Vestal, Sam, and Rusty opened their mouths and started singing, I Will Meet You, man, there was a wall of vocal sound that knocked me out of my chair. And at that very moment, at the first lick of the steel guitar and the first words from the Goodmans, it just drilled deep into my soul and into my spirit. And it was done. It was over with. That was 41 years later.
Wow.
Here I am.
Arthur, what you got?
Well, isn't it amazing how quickly that bug can bite, and then you're just a fan for life. You really are.
Yeah.
What it took for others still takes today, a washing from that crimson flow. Confessions at Calvary cleanse every sin stain and makes one whiter than snow. I'm riding this old ship of Zion. So many before me rode it safely o'er. Jesus the captain has lost no, not one, so I'll ride this ship to the shore. I'm riding this old ship of Zion. So many before me rode it safely o'er. Jesus the captain has lost no, not one, so I'll ride this ship to the shore. Well, Jesus the captain has lost no, not one, so I'll ride this ship to the shore. I'll ride this ship to the shore.
Would you say, Les, the name of your group currently, Old Time Preachers Quartet, how did that come about, first off? Tell us that.
Well, I had this has probably been 5 or 6 years ago now. I had an idea. I think the Lord just placed it in my spirit. He just dropped it in there about 4 preachers that had some ability to sing and do music to get together and do it as a quartet and kind of be a self-contained evangelistic team where we could go in to churches and preach and sing, or just preach, or just sing, or do both. And I had one person in my spirit the whole time that for this to work, it had to be with this one individual, and it was Mike Holcomb, and he was with the Inspirations. And he had been talking to me for years about wanting to slow down singing and just go preach and things like that. And so I told him, I said, Mike, if you ever do lead the Inspirations and you do what you told me for the last few years that you'd like to do, just go out and preach more. Here's this idea I have with 4 preachers to go out and not do it every weekend and not get a bus and all that stuff. Just when the Lord made the doors open and the opportunities exist to go and do it. Here's my idea, and so I presented it to him, and he said, "Let me think about it, pray about it." And he came back, and it wasn't the right time. About a year after that, I did it again, and he said the same thing. Let me pray about it, and I'll get back to you. And he did get back to me, and it was the right time. He had left the Inspirations about a year or so before then, and he was just preaching. And so, he said, when you're with a quartet for as long as I was with the Inspirations, you get the itch to sing with other guys and not just as a soloist like I've been doing as I preach. And so he said that would be, that'd be fun. I'd enjoy that. Having 4 preachers do it, that's a great, it's a unique thing, and I'm for that. So I had a couple other preachers in mind at that point, which I hadn't even mentioned it to them because I wasn't going to unless Mike said yes.
Yeah.
And so I went to them, and they were in, and so it's been 3.5 years now, and as preachers do, I mean, some of them took churches and things like that. So we've had some movement, like every other group in the world. But Mike and I are still there, and when he leaves, the quartet will disband, or according to him, if I hang it up, he'll just go back to doing what he was doing. So he and I anchor it, and as we speak, we've got Bob Sellers, who sang with Kingsman, lead with the Kingsman for several years.
Yeah.
He's not a preacher, but he's a deacon. And so I said that's close enough for me. When we talked, I said, "Do you like fried chicken?" He said, "Yes." I said, "You're in." So there you go. And we have Tim Owens singing tenor, and then we have Adam Borden, who was with Gold City for 11 years.
Right.
And he's a preacher. All the rest of us are preachers, and so he goes with it. So we've got 5 members. And sometimes Adam works for Kubota, so he can't go during the week. So we have our core four that'll do all the weekday stuff, and then Adam will be with us on Saturdays and Sundays and special events. So that's the quartet, and it's gone far, far, far beyond what Mike and I first envisioned. So I don't know what the Lord's up to, but he seems to be up to something.
How can folks find you on the internet, find your product, find what you're doing, follow the Old Time Preachers Quartet? How can folks get a hold of you, Les?
Our website, oldtimepreachersquartet.com, or they can call me at 615-218-0517.
That's cool. Let's talk about Les Butler Beasley. I don't know why.
It happens every day, man.
Yeah.
Every day I get Les Beasley.
Well, you're always going to be the number 2 or 3 less in the industry. You realize that, don't you? I mean, you can't.
It was a running.
Yeah.
It was a running thing between Les Beasley and myself. Every time we saw each other, I would go to him and say, "How you doing, Les number 1?" He'd say, "How you doing, Les number 2?" And then we'd go on and do what we had to do. So, no, I'm fine with being Les number 2. There's no problem with that at all. I'll never be a Les number 1.
Man, if we could have the hit run that he had, we would all be just thankful. And he's singing in glory today. Les, let me ask you this. You've seen this from the industry side, you've seen it from the promotion side, you see it from the evangelical side, you see it from the entertainment side, you see it from the ministry side. It's a 2-part question here. What are some of the challenges we are seeing in today's society with gospel music as a whole, in your opinion?
Boy, you might want to give a man a warning if you're going to get into a deep question like that. That's hard to just off the cuff think about that. I would say one thing, and Arthur, you can weigh in on this.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, the way music is sold today and the way we as a group can monetize music sales, it's very challenging and very, very difficult now.
Yeah.
The different world.
Would you agree with that, Arthur?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. With all the online sales and stuff, it's challenging. It really is challenging to figure out because, for so long, so many of our artists, that's how we made up a lot of the expenses of the road, of being on the road. Your flats and offerings and that sort of thing kind of takes care of the day-to-day, but your sales, took care of the road expense a lot of times. And without that, man, it's just, it just comes in a different way. And it's really challenging.
Yeah, it's, so that's one thing. Then the other thing is, I often get asked, matter of fact, I'm hosting some radio shows right now, and I recorded some things yesterday, and I got a couple of emails asking folks about if they have questions about Southern gospel music, and 2 of them came in very similar. That is, Southern gospel today versus how it was 50 and 60 years ago. And my answer to that is, 50 years ago we had contemporary groups like the Imperials and folks like that. Yet at the same time, the traditional Blackwood Statesmen and all of that. And so today, honestly, I don't see it much different than it was 50, 60 years ago. There was all of the above back then, and there's all of the above today.
Yeah.
50 years ago, you had some bluegrass with the Lewis family. Right now, this year, you've got bluegrass like the Primitive Quartet and Isaacs and things like that. So there's 50, 60 years ago, there was all of that, and there still is all of that today. And so, honestly, I don't see that much of a difference between Southern gospel, the umbrella of Southern gospel today, as it was 50 or 60 years ago.
What can we do? And we get tired. And here's what Arthur and I can vouch for this, Les, just looking at the numbers that people listen to this, a podcast on a download from all across the country, and the niche that we have and what we do. And folks are saying gospel music's, declining, it's declining, it's declining. I don't think it's declining. Actually, I just don't think people listen and attend concerts in the way they once did. I mean, I will say that, and I will look at industry groups like the Ball Brothers and see how they're operating sort of outside the box to the normal
Yeah.
thing. And I think we're just in a transitional stage, similar to where we were even in the late 70s, early 80s, when we were trying to decide if Dallas Holmes was indeed Southern gospel or if he was contemporary. Or you follow what I'm saying? I think we're just in a transitional time in that point. That brings me to my second point of the question. Tell us some of the great things that you're seeing in gospel music today from an industry side that's propelling growth and just exciting to be a part of.
Oh, well, one thing, I don't know that this is a really a specific answer to that kind of a specific question, but the first thing that comes to mind that I'm encouraged with, and I'm sure it's because of the kind of group that I'm with, the Old Time Preachers Quartet. We are very traditional. Yeah. And I was starting to kind of see from singing these charts and things like that the higher charting songs were going to the more edgier stuff and sounds and all that. And in fact, I mean, it kind of is just that way. But then, we started putting out our little old traditional quartet sounding stuff. And the next thing you know, our last couple of songs are in the top 5 in the singing news, and we're selling soundtracks as fast as I can make them. And people are wanting to sing that kind of stuff in their own churches. And Arthur, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, man, I could have told you that. That's, because the Kingdom Heirs, that's what they do. Right. I mean, they, Diane Wilkinson, those kinds of songs. And I started to think that maybe some of that was going away from us, Arthur, but I don't know, man. I'm pretty encouraged by what I'm seeing on our end for traditional gospel music.
Yeah, it is coming back around, and there's an audience that we haven't had before, and a lot of it is young people. We've seen a lot of young people at our concerts this winter that just normally weren't there, and that's encouraging to see that. And you're right, they're coming up and they're going, hey, we love this music, and it's new to them, and they're loving it. So that is I'm like you, it's encouraging.
I think it's like
we put out a song called "I'll Ride This Ship to the Shore."
Yeah,
and the first verse says, "Some folks say you don't have to mention the blood. That's just too old-fashioned anymore. Well, you got here too late. I'm already on board. I'm going to ride this ship to the shore." I thought to myself, ain't nobody in the world going to like that. And we went ahead and recorded it anyway and put it out. I'll be, if the thing didn't make the top 5 and the top 40 for the year in the singing news. That encourages me that there's still people wanting to hear that kind of meat in a message and not just fluff about hip, hip, hooray, we're going to fly through the sky one day and hip, hip, hooray. There's times when that kind of thing is okay, but man, I'm just encouraged that people are starting to eat meat again.
Nice. Yeah. Les, you can hear it in your voice. You know it if you're in the industry. You're also you've said it in your introduction of the group. You're a preacher. First off and foremost, you're a called man of God who's going to stand behind and preach the word unapologetically anywhere you go. Okay. Who are some of those gospel music artists that you can think about in the past who were influencers to you, and pastors who were influencers to you, that sometimes when you're studying or sometimes when you're preparing a message, you eat from, so to speak, if I can use that vernacular?
Well, I'm going to have to, and you probably, if you've asked this kind of question to others in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't go here first. And that is, I got to go to my dad. I mean, my dad was a preacher. Okay. And he was the one that showed me G, C, and D on a guitar. And he did that early on. And a few months after that, I was playing 13 different instruments. I mean, so that was my dad. And the folks that he hung around with and other preachers, those are the preachers that really impacted me early on. But when it comes to the music end, boy, wow. First off, the first thing that's going to come out of my mouth is Rusty Goodman. To me, the greatest singer of all time, one of the greatest writers of all time, one of the greatest communicators of all time. And Man, I mean, Rusty Goodman. And then I'm going to have to go to the cathedrals. Then I'm going to have to go to Kenny Henson. I mean, my parents being from Eastern Kentucky, I got a steady diet of George Jones and Merle Haggard early on, and so I like the country-sounding vocal, and Kenny Henson was the best ever at that. And so those are some of the musical influences that really impacted me early. And let me say this, and I mean this, and not because Arthur's on the phone. I'm a preacher, and I'm going to tell the truth, and that's the way it is. The Kingdom Heirs are the best quartet in Southern gospel music today, and probably over the last at least 2 decades.
Hands down.
Nobody can touch the Kingdom Heirs, period. And if anybody disagrees with me, you're crazy and you need to go see a doctor. Nobody can touch the Kingdom Heirs. They are the best, and we aspire to be 1/10 of who they are as a quartet.
Hands down. I'm glad you said that. I tell Arthur that all the time, and he's so humble. He just gosh, he plays that Andy Griffith, gosh, me. But it's the truth. It is the truth.
Matter of fact, I just did a radio show yesterday.
Yeah.
And was talking about that, and I said, I said exactly what I just told you, and I did it on my radio show. So, I mean, I've put it out for the world to hear. It's just the fact, and everybody's got to deal with it. And there are other great quartets today. I don't want you to think. I mean, Mark Trammell Quartet. Oh my goodness, I'll travel anywhere to go see them. And there are others, but the top rung of the quartet ladder in 2019, Kingdom Heirs. Period.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
There goes that old gosh stuff again.
Well, the difference, you need to sing about 500 performances a year. And
I guarantee you that does help matters. I call our old time preachers quartet internally. We call ourselves the old hairy-legged preacher boys, and the old hairy-legged preacher boys have yet to have a single rehearsal. We've yet to rehearse anything.
Fun.
We do it every day.
We have no
times a day.
We have no time.
That's amazing. Last question. We'll get out of here. Where do you see the music 10, 15 years from now?
Well, kind of like what I said a while ago. 50 years ago, it was the same. For me, it was the same as it is today. You're going to have some contemporary sounding groups, some country sounding groups, some bluegrass sounding groups, some traditional Southern gospel groups, mixed family groups, all of that. I don't see that changing. I really don't.
Now, tell everybody one more time about your website, how they can find out more information about the Old Time Preachers Quartet. Tell them about your radio show and tell them what you're doing business-wise. And if they ever need any help, how to get a hold of you again.
Okay, well, I own Butler Music Group and the label Family Music Group. And if anybody has production needs, we do that. We're mixing on a Barry Rowland and Deliverance record right now. As soon as I hang up, I'll go back and continue with that. Radio promotion. Last month, I was blessed to be involved with something that, as I understand, has never happened before, and that is my label and one of my groups, and through our radio promotion efforts, we had the #1 song in every single Southern gospel publication, magazine, radio, and online, and that's never happened before. And at the same time, had it on the bluegrass side. So we had #1 with the Williamsons, Every Moment, Every Mountain, Every Mile, and a #1 song with Heaven's Mountain Band, and on all charts, and that's never happened before. So tons of radio promotion. I host a bluegrass gospel show called Les Butler and Friends. I am getting ready to unveil a Southern gospel radio effort that is very unique, different than anything going on today, and I'll soon be announcing it. I would announce it now, but it'd be just a shade premature. But it's going to be pretty cool, so be watching for that.
Nice.
And, of course, the quartet. So I don't know if I can do anything else. I don't sleep very much. I'm built like that. My wife and I have been married for almost 40 years, and she said, I knew what I was getting involved with because you've always been like this, but I wear her out. Bless her heart.
Les Butler's been our guest
But
here.
that's it. So-
Oh, man. Les, you sound like you're working like we are 24/7, always doing something. You know, is like Arthur and I always say, if we're not doing what we love, we're talking about what we love. And thank you for your impact in gospel music. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for carrying on the tradition of gospel music. It's a blessing to thousands that you'll never meet on this side, but in glory, we'll all have a good time talking about all these fun things. I appreciate your time, my friend. If you'll hold the line real quick so I can get some information
All right.
like we talked. Arthur, you and I will go ahead and close out right now, and I'll go back and edit this part right here. So anyway, so here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Arthur Les Butler, good man. Got a lot going on. Got a lot going on, don't he?
He does. I'm telling you, and you were right when we first started. You know, Les has done so much stuff that nobody really knows about, and has so much for our music and our industry, and it's helped so many people. And I tell you what has impressed me really about him is he loves the new writers. He loves the new songwriters coming on. He has encouraged them so much, and I get that from the writers, how much they have gleaned from him and how much he has and helped them and impressed upon them, you know, the importance of the lyric, and that means a lot.
I first met Les, I guess it was, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. I was up in Nashville when I was working for Salem, and he was in Salem. And let me say this, and I will say this from our conversation right there. He is not only a super fan of gospel music, but he is a protector of the legacy of gospel music. When some people wanted to push it more to the progressive end, you can tell from his conversation and what he said about his song, I'll Ride That Ship to Glory. It's not that he's pushing it back by no means, but he's protecting the entity, okay?
Holding the course.
And holding the course. And you know as well as anybody that I probably push it as much as anybody does. You follow what I'm saying? But I'm thankful we've got men like Les that do that, because it takes a great balance, and that's what makes the world go round.
Take heart, O weary Christian, don't you grieve or fear or doubt, for Christ will soon be coming, and we'll see him in the clouds, just as Jesus rose again the dead, and Christ shall also rise, and he'll take us where our faith can then be sight. We'll be waving this whole world goodbye when we fly to meet our Savior in the skies. Chariots to paradise. We'll be waving this whole world goodbye.
Each day it's one day closer, and we know it won't be long till we join with heaven's choir as they sing redemption song. What a wonderful reunion with our loved ones gone before, as we glory in the presence of the Lord.
We'll be waving this whole world goodbye when we fly to meet our Savior in the skies. He will carry on his chariots to paradise. We'll be waving this whole world goodbye. This whole world goodbye when we fly to
And before we close today, we need to go grab our friend over there in St. Louis, Missouri. He's getting ready for baseball season just like I am. Baseball season started yesterday for the Cardinals, as it did my Braves. Our good friend, our historian of SGNP, Jeff Turner. Jeff, how you doing, my friend?
Great, Darren. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. Is baseball going to be all right for the Cardinals this year? You glad that you got Goldschmidt at first base and things are looking good for the Cardinals?
I think we can compete pretty well, hopefully, with your Braves.
Shoot, man, if we get some pitching, dude, we're going to be phenomenal. I'm just going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Hey, we're not here to talk about baseball today, although you and I could do a heck of a baseball podcast, I'm sure. We're here to talk about the great Southern gospel music, and as you heard earlier today, we were on the phone with Les Butler of the Old Time Preachers Quartet, him and the guys. And, you know, let's talk for just a minute, Jeff. Hovey Lister's an obvious choice of someone who has been a gospel musician and a preacher. Who are some other big names or other names, they may not have been big, but just other names that toted the gospel as a preacher? Mark Trammell's for one that's of the modern era, but some other folks that have preached the gospel and sang at the same time.
Well, back in the late 50s, Howard and Vestal Goodman started a church in Madisonville, Kentucky, and that lasted all the way up until about 1984.
Yeah.
So a lot of people might not have known that they were also pastors besides being gospel music singers.
Wasn't that called the House of Prayer or something like that?
Life Temple Church.
Life Temple Church. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it? Was it affiliated with anybody, or was it independent, non-denominational? Do you know?
I would think it was non-denominational.
Yeah.
You know, on the Pentecostal side, naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Who else you got?
Roy Blackwood, who was an original member of the Blackwood Brothers. In the 20s and 30s, he was a ordained minister by the Church of God. Carol Magruder, down in Kennett, Missouri.
Yeah.
He pastored a church in Kennett called the First United Pentecostal Church.
Yeah.
And you know, you mentioned Hovey.
Yeah.
Pastor in Mount Zion and near Marietta.
Right down the street. Right. Do you realize we're a stone's throw from that? Where my studio's sitting here at in Marietta. We're literally.
Really?
I literally drive by it every day on the way to work and the way.
Wow.
Yep.
Huh.
So I'm always amazed when they asked Hovey the question, the article in the Saturday Evening Post. Are you a preacher?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a preacher? Are you an entertainer? Yes and yes. Next question. And you know who else you got that's a preacher and he's a great singer and a songwriter? Gerald Crabb. You can't forget Gerald.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
and some of the ones today, McCrae Dove, he just left the road, traveling, singing. He's got a church in North Carolina, and Gary McSpadden's in Branson.
Yeah.
And then Randy Perry and Larry Orrell, they're evangelists.
Yep.
Buddy Burton's on staff at the church in Florida.
Our good friend Buddy and our good friend Randy. Yep.
Yeah.
No doubt. A lot of them.
But talking Hovey too, back in the early 60s, starting in 63 at the Quartet Convention, he would always preach on Sunday mornings, and they started recording those sermons and issuing them on vinyl, where people could buy the sermon albums of Hovey preaching at the Quartet Convention.
Neat.
I think it ran from 63 to 69. So.
You know the one that's probably best known for preaching and not for singing, but he was a top Southern gospel artist in his own right, but he's known more for preaching and probably some things that he doesn't want to be known for, and that's Jimmy Swaggart.
Oh, yeah.
No, Jimmy had countless top Southern gospel songs and truthfully probably carried gospel music into parts of the earth that no other Southern gospel performer has. I mean, his South American crusades rivaled that of a Billy Graham, quite frankly.
Sure.
Absolutely. Could you qualify? And I know he wasn't a preacher, but since we mentioned Graham, could you qualify George Beverly Shea as a Southern gospel artist?
Somewhat, I guess. Yeah, sure.
So anyway, he was on a Gaither video or two. So we'll put him there. How about that?
Yeah.
That if you're on a Gaither video, you sing Southern gospel music. That's the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way it works. Hey, I tell you somebody who I heard preach as good as any preacher. That was a Southern gospel artist, and that was the late Charles Johnson of Charles Johnson and the Revivers. I mean, he would shuck the corn. So some good things. Hey, this past Wednesday, if you heard the special edition of SGNP, we had a little 20-minute special edition that came out. And if you hadn't heard it, you can go to our website, SouthernGospelNewspodcast.com, and hear it. But your good friends, Rick Shelton, Aaron Rich, and Harold Timmons made a huge announcement concerning the Gospel Music Hall of Fame and the SGMA and a research library that's being founded in Nashville, Tennessee by Day Win and the Southern Gospel Music Association. You're a big collector yourself. You produce the page Southern Gospel Memories in Pictures, Southern Gospel Memories in Videos. Jeff, this has got to be a great thing for you. I mean, you've got countless thousands of pictures and copies of pictures and different things of that nature. And it's like Aaron said, there's probably fewer than 100 serious collectors in the United States that collect this stuff, and you being one of them. And we always take the perspective of this show is done by fans for fans, okay? The audible voice of gospel music, SGNP, and you're a fan first. What's this facility mean to you, the fan? I mean, what's your first thoughts on it, Jeff?
Well, this idea came up, I want to say in 2016, we discussed it, and the biggest roadblock was the facility. And, where are we going to house this at? And, with Day One providing this facility now, that's not an issue anymore, so now we can move forward with it. And I'm sure, I've talked with Harold, I've talked with Aaron, and I'm sure I'll be involved with the picture end of it quite a bit. So I'm really looking forward to that. And, they've been friends of mine for many years, so looking forward to working with them and getting this thing rolling. It'll be something that all, to help educate the average Southern gospel music fan. So
it'll be awesome.
I think it'd be great.
Do you have a copy of the Statesman number 109 like they were talking about yesterday?
No, sir. Never seen it. And, that's been one of the running jokes, amongst us collectors over the years, that does it exist, does it not? And, it is listed on like Aaron said, it is listed on a brochure, of record listings. So you would think it exists if it's listed, so. But nobody's ever run across it.
Nobody's never. And I wonder, and it's like I said to Aaron, maybe Ethel has it in her basement somewhere. Maybe there's a box of them over in her basement.
That's the way it's going to show up. Trust me. If it exists, that's the way it'll show up.
It'll be. Here's what'll happen. I'm a big baseball collector, as you know, big baseball card collector. Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago, up in Tennessee, a gentleman passed away, and they went up in the attic, and they found a bunch of 1952 Topps cards still in the wax pack. 52 was the first year of Topps was produced. They were still in the wax packs, never been opened. His grandfather had owned a store and put them back, and they'd never been opened. So that's what's going to happen. I heard Melvin Clout say this one time with the Clout Indian family. He said that and I heard this story, and it could be totally rumor and totally false. Who knows? But he was talking about a nostalgic record sale up in the Midwest somewhere. And a Clout Indian record came up for sale. And Clout Indian family, as many well know, Mom Clout wore the headdress, and they portrayed Indians back in the day and were well known, as you know. But they're in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And the bid for that album went through the roof. And they asked Melvin, they said, Melvin, what do you think about the bid on that album? And he said, well, if they paid that much, I've got a whole bunch more that I'm willing to sell them today.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
As a collector yourself, Jeff, and as a purveyor of these artifacts, first off, what is your favorite item that you have personally that's an original that you have? Not a copy, but an original of something. What do you like?
There's an album amongst us collectors that is in the Holy Grail. When you're talking Holy Grail, this album comes up. It was an album by the Plainsman Quartet from 1959, and it's on the Inspiration label, Inspiration 151. It's red vinyl, and this album is highly sought after. We call it the Red Record. If you ever hear the Red Record, that's a Red Record amongst collectors. When they speak Red Record, that's what they're talking about. And as a matter of fact, we were talking about the Goodmans. Rusty Goodman was the bass singer on that album. He was with the Plainsman Quartet before, joining the Goodman family in 1963. So that's probably the rarest album I got.
What makes that album so rare and so wanted? Just because it was red, and because there wasn't many producers?
No. That's it. There weren't many produced, and it's just. And as a matter of fact, I not only had at one time I had a black vinyl copy of it too, so I had both the red and the black. And so.
All right. Now I'm going to go down a path that you may not want me to go down. Okay.
All right.
To a collector, what's the value on something like that?
That album there, I sold for $250. Probably, I don't know.
And that was the black vinyl copy. That was the black vinyl copy.
That was the red.
That was the red.
Okay. The rarest one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I also had the Cathedral Quartet before they were a quartet, and with George Yance, they were a trio, the Cathedral Trio. Glenn Payne, Danny Coker, and Bobby Clark. I had a sealed copy of their first album, which was very rare to begin with, much less sealed. And I think I got $300 for that back maybe 20 years ago.
So nobody's getting rich in rare gospel music artifacts, correct?
No. There's very few albums like that that are worth that kind of money. So,
but if they did have a Statesman number 109, would it be worth? Yeah. Would it be a 5-figure? Would a collector, out of those 100 collectors in the United States, would somebody play 5-6 figures for that? You think? Would there be a bidding war between a couple of folks who really wanted that you know of?
Aaron Rich would win it. Trust me. Whatever you bid, he'd go over the top of you. So it'd be his. It'd be in his collection. So
it'd be in his collection. Wow. Neat story. Is there something that you want that's out there that somebody can email us here at SGNP saying, Jeff, you said you wanted this. I'm willing to give it to you. What do you want? What are you searching for?
Well, I sold my personal record collection back about 20 years ago, and I started getting into this picture thing back about 5.5 years ago, and that's really taken over. My passion is the pictures. Because not only you can listen to the songs on vinyl, but you can look at these pictures and bring back memories too. And so that if anybody's got pictures they don't know what to do, don't throw them away.
Don't throw them away. Yep.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Go ahead.
That always. Aaron and I were talking about this the other day. How that's our biggest fear is these people passing away and they have all these artifacts and stuff. They don't know what to do with it, so it goes to the dump.
Yeah. I know a guy right here in Cobb County, Georgia. He passed away. His name was Esmer Daniel. Okay. Esmer had a collection. Esmer had a collection in his attic that was unreal, and I have never been able to find out what happened with that collection. But Esmer had a huge collection of stuff. Charlie Sexton, our old producer, has a huge collection of stuff. Charlie's got a ton. Matter of fact, I think he's got those original glasses that had the Statesman on them. The green tinted drinking glasses that were
Blackwood Brothers.
Yeah, with the Statesman on them. I think
Charlie.
Go ahead.
Charlie's a big Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters guy.
Yeah,
that's his favorite group.
No doubt. I think if there was one or two things I would collect personally, if I could get a hold of, and by no means am I a big collector, but I do enjoy having artifacts and things like that. I would love to have the original reel-to-reels or the original tapes of the Sunshine Boys Western tapes. okay, back in the day. Sure. And here's why. Because I really believe gospel music on the secular level can make it, okay? And the Sunshine Boys were able to do that. I think the Holy Grail, and I don't think you nor the Southern Gospel Music Association will ever be able to get these, is the masters of the old $1 Million Quartet singing gospel music there in Memphis, Tennessee. That's Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, and the late Elvis Presley singing 9 gospel songs. And I would love to hold the master tapes to those. And that would be something. That'd be something to hold on to, don't you think?
Oh yeah, and there's so much of this stuff out there that people don't know what to do with, and if you got it, send it our way. We'd be glad to have it.
Well, Jeff, before we get out of here, where can they find you on Facebook and online and all that kind of good stuff to get their information to you?
Southern Gospel Memories and Pictures is our picture site. We're posting every day on there. Photos all the way from back in the 20s all the way up to the 2000s. So there's a little bit of content for everybody. A
little bit of fun there. Thank you for all our podcast listeners out there. You can now hear us in 2 shows a week. 2 shows, so you'll have another one coming out. Make sure you go to iHeart, Sketcher, all these other places, wherever you subscribe to your podcast. Subscribe to Southern Gospel News Podcast. You can look over at your Alexa machine or your Google machine and say, Google Play Southern Gospel News Podcast, and you can hear us on fine radio stations all across the country, like WLJA in Ellijay, Georgia, Byron Dobbs and the guys up there, and I know they play a lot of old-time preacher quartet, and my buddy Byron and folks will be glad to hear Les and him talk about Mike Holcomb, because if I'm not mistaken, that's Mike's hometown. Jeff, I'm going to ask you the same thing I ask Arthur at the end of every show. You know what that is, don't you?
Yeah.
All righty, so you got to fill in and do it right. And all the SGNP fans know what the question is. Jeff?
I do.
What's wrong with living right anyway?
Nothing at all.
Not one thing. Here you go, nothing at all.
Not one thing. Is that what he said? I couldn't remember.
That's what he says, man. Not one thing. Come on.
Not one thing.
There we go.
Not one thing.
All righty, you've been listening to SGNP on your local radio station or podcast. Thank you for listening. Check us out online, Southern Gospel News Podcast. Check us out on Facebook, Southern Gospel News Podcast. Twitter, SGNP Podcast. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. The audible voice of gospel music, Southern Gospel News Podcast. Bye-bye. See y'all next week.
Thank you for listening to SGNP. If you're listening on radio, please note you can listen to our podcast 24/7 on your own schedule. Just download wherever you get your podcast from, or visit us online at southerngospelnewspodcast.com. To hear it on your smart speaker, just ask Alexa or Google to play Southern Gospel News Podcast. And after listening, please leave a remark in the remarks section and subscribe, and you'll receive our program free every Friday. And remember to check out Southern Gospel News Podcast social media for daily fun and giveaways. We're the audible voice of gospel music. We look to uplift you every week. SGNP, where it's all about the gospel.